The smell of ash never left Red Hollow, not even after the rains. It lived in the timbers, in the dust between floorboards, in the dreams of those who had survived the fire. Some said the preacher's daughter had risen from it like a phoenix. Others said she had died in that church right along with her father, and only her body stayed behind. Etta Rose stood barefoot on the edge of the ruined chapel, hem of her gray cotton dress ghosting over cinders. Her eyes traced the crooked spine of the steeple half fallen, split like a cracked tooth against the pale dawn. Wind pulled her braid loose, whispering to the empty pews that had once held sinners and saints alike. Behind her, the town began to stir. Hammers on boards, roosters announcing another dry morning. The townsfolk had long returned to their routines. But Etta returned here, every week, to the bones of the church that had shaped her. She would press her hand against scorched stone and feel nothing. No warmth, no divinity. Just ruin. Then came the sound of hooves. She didn't turn at first. Let the creak of leather and slow drag of breath announce the rider. Only when the hooves stopped did she look. He dismounted like he'd never left the saddle, tall, lean, with broad shoulders wrapped in a threadbare duster. His face was older, perhaps harder than the last time she'd seen it. The years had drawn trenches at his brow, and his eyes no longer held the reckless fire they once did. But it was him, Cole Mercer. Her throat closed, not in fear but in memory. She remembered the night like a fever dream. Screams tangled with smoke, flames licking the chapel roof, her father's voice roaring verses no god had answered. And Cole, standing in the aisle, framed in firelight, watching the world burn. He tipped his hat, slow. "Didn't expect to find you here." Etta said nothing. The derringer beneath her shawl rested heavy against her ribs, but her fingers didn't move. "You always did come early to pray," he added. She studied him. "You think this place still holds prayers?" He looked past her at the ruins, something haunted flickering across his face. Maybe not, but it might still hold answers. Cole stepped forward, boots crunching charcoal underfoot. Etta didn't back away, but the air between them thickened like a coming storm. "You rebuilding it?" she asked. He gave a single nod. "Oh, this town something." "You owe this town everything," she said, voice low. Silence. A vulture wheeled high above, casting its shadow over the bones of the steeple. "I didn't light the match," Cole said finally, "but I didn't stop the one who did. That's as good as guilt." Etta looked away, her jaw clenched against the memory, his silhouette in the fire, the heat blistering her skin, her father's sermons ending in smoke. Why come back now? "Because I couldn't keep running," he said. "I'm tired, Etta, of graves, of ghosts." She laughed bitterly. "You thought this place would save you?" "No," he said, voice rough. "I thought maybe it could bury me." Behind them, the town's main street stirred with quiet suspicion. Curtains twitched, doors half opened. No one had forgotten what happened. No one would forgive easily, and certainly not Etta. But she didn't pull her gun. Instead, she stepped aside and let him walk past her into the blackened skeleton of the church. He ran a hand over a beam, as if searching for something that had never been his. Dust rose in lazy spirals where his fingers touched. He looked older under that ruined roof. Not dangerous, just tired. She hated that she could still see the man he'd been before the fire. The one who smiled sideways, told bad jokes after sermons, passed her notes from the back pew. The boy who once carved a wooden cross for her, simple and small, and slipped it into her palm before she stepped into the baptismal font. It had burned too. "I'm not here to stir up trouble," he said, "just to make things right." "There's no right left in this place," she answered. "Only what's left standing." "And you?" he asked. "You still standing?" Her breath caught. "I walk," she said softly. "Some days that's enough." He nodded, slow. "If the town wants me gone, I'll go. I just thought someone ought to fix what broke. You can't fix fire with nails and wood." "No," he agreed, "but maybe I can make something worth the space it burned." She turned away before her face betrayed her. Later, after he was gone, she sat in the blackened pulpit, legs drawn to her chest. She pulled from her skirt pocket the charred cross he'd given her long ago, the one she found buried in ash after the flames. She still carried it, though she'd never admit why. Cole Mercer had returned. The man who'd burned her world down now wanted to rebuild it. And Etta Rose, preacher's daughter, fire-born and flint-hearted, wasn't sure whether she wanted him to succeed or to burn with the church this time. The well sat at the edge of town like a relic from an older, kinder time. Etta Rose stood beside it at high noon, drawing water with the practiced rhythm of someone raised on hard earth and harder faith. The bucket creaked against the rope, splashed once, and rose shining in the sun like a silver offering. She turned and nearly spilled it. Cole was there, sleeves rolled up, hammer in hand. He had stripped off his duster, left it slung across a fence post like a snake shed of its skin. His shirt clung damp to his back, and sawdust dusted his hair like early frost. He was rebuilding the eastern wall of the chapel, log by log, nail by nail. Alone, she didn't mean to walk toward him, but her feet moved anyway. He paused when he heard her boots on the dry packed dirt. His eyes met hers, unguarded, neither daring nor ashamed, just tired, honest in a way that unsettled her. "Water?" she asked, lifting the bucket an inch. He nodded once. "I'd be obliged." She dipped a tin cup, handed it over without a word. Their fingers didn't touch, but the closeness hummed. He drank slowly, throat moving like a promise, then handed it back. "Thank you," he said. Etta didn't reply. She watched the way he turned back to the wall, striking nails with deliberate patience. He wasn't strong the way the sheriff was. His strength was quiet, more like root than branch. She hated that she saw it at all. "You plan to rebuild it just the same?" she asked. Cole kept hammering. "Frame will be near identical, but some things you'll change." "Like what?" He paused, glancing toward her. "This time, it won't be for a man who used God to bleed the town dry." The words struck hard. She felt them in her chest, like a scripture misquoted. Her father's name hadn't been dragged to the dirt publicly, but rumors had always circled, about tithes collected twice, of widows' pressure for coin, of backroom deals with cattlemen and lawmen alike. "You speak bold for someone who lit the match," she said. "I didn't," he replied, "but I didn't stop the one who did. Makes no difference to most." His voice didn't flinch. He offered no defense, no pretty story. Just the truth, rough and bitter. Etta sat on a broken pew nearby, watching as he returned his work. The wind tugged her braid. The sun slipped a little westward. "Who was it then?" she asked after a while. "Who burned it?" He wiped his brow with his sleeve. "Does it matter?" "Yes." His hammer lowered. For a moment he didn't look at her, just stared into the grain of the wood. "There was a man," he said, "traveling preacher, charmer, spoke sweeter than a rattler's hiss. He came through during the war, spoke against your father, said the church was a front for greed, not grace." The town laughed at him. He came back one night and made his case with kerosene. Etta's breath caught. "And you?" "I followed him in, tried to talk him down." He laughed, said sometimes fire's the only sermon folks understand. "You let him go." "I did." She looked down at her hands, pale and trembling. She remembered the smell of her sister's dress on fire, the way her father tried to carry 2 children at once, but only made it halfway. She'd always assumed Cole was the devil that night, but now the devil had a different name, and Cole had just stood aside. "I thought you'd killed her," she said, voice raw. "I tried to get her out," he said. "The younger one." She slipped from my arms. Smoke was thick. "I couldn't." He stopped. His jaw tightened. She saw the grief he didn't speak, the years that had lived behind his silence. "No one ever told me," she whispered. "No one asked." She stood suddenly, breath ragged. "You should have run further. Stayed gone." "I did run," he said quietly. "But the further I went, the more I carried." They stared at one another across the sun-warmed wreckage of what once was sacred. Etta felt something crack in her, something not entirely rage. "I should hate you," she said. "I wouldn't blame you. And yet," she shook her head, "you build, as if it'll fix it." "I don't build to fix," he said. "I build because it's the only thing I know that doesn't destroy." Her eyes blurred. She turned away, wiping them quickly before the tears could fall. She didn't want him to see her weakness. She didn't want him to see her at all. That night, the sheriff came calling. He stood at her doorway like a man who believed he belonged in every house. His hat low, boots clean, eyes cold. Etta didn't step aside. "You hear who's back?" he asked. "I saw. Shouldn't be here. Not after what he did. He's rebuilding the chapel. Doesn't make him holy. I didn't say it did." The sheriff narrowed his gaze. "You talked to him?" "I gave him water." "That's too much." She crossed her arms. "You here to warn me or threaten me?" He smiled. "Just keeping the town safe. You know how people talk. You, being who you are, ought to be careful. You spend too much time around that man. Folks might start wondering where your loyalties lie." "My loyalty is with the truth," she said. "Truth is," the sheriff replied, "some men don't deserve second chances or sympathy. You give a wolf a drink, don't be surprised when he bites." He tipped his hat and walked away, boots ringing against the porch boards. Etta stood in the doorway long after he'd gone. In the distance, the faint sound of a hammer echoed through the night, steady, stubborn. She closed her eyes and listened, unsure whether she wanted it to stop or never end. The storm came with no thunder, just heat and stillness, thick as old grief. The sky hung low and yellow, stretched tight like a drumskin, and the wind held its breath. Cole hammered the final beam into place on the church frame, sweat trailing his spine. He hadn't seen Etta in 2 days. She hadn't brought water, hadn't stood in the shade watching him work. That absence stung worse than the sheriff's glares or the sideways looks from townsfolk passing by with their buckets and gossip. He could bear their hatred, but not her silence. He paused, leaning against the beam, watching the road. He didn't see her, but he saw dust. Riders. They came slow, deliberate, sun-glared silhouettes with pale scarves over their faces and long-barrel rifles slung easy at their sides. 5 men, mounted like judges on high. The pale sons. He'd heard them across 3 counties, zealots wrapped in scripture and smoke, riding in after lawmen failed, punishing sin with fire and rope. And worse, they called it cleansing. Cole's jaw set. They tied their horses outside the saloon, but their eyes scanned the town until they landed on a rising frame of the church. The tallest of them, wide-chested and all in gray, lifted his hat and smirked. That night, Etta found a note pinned to her door with a bone-handled knife. Asterisk, you choose fire or faith. He can't have both. Neither can you. Asterisk. She read it twice, then again, her hand shaking. Her thumb brushed the old scar on her palm, the one the fire hadn't taken. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She saddled her mule and rode toward the chapel. Cole was inside, lantern burning low, working by lamplight like the devil might catch him if he stopped. She watched him a long moment before speaking. "You know who they are?" He turned. His face softened, but not with surprise. "I do." "They came for you?" Maybe for both of us." She stepped inside, boots echoing against unfinished floorboards. "You should go." His hammer lowered. "That what you want?" She didn't answer right away. Her chest rose with a breath she didn't trust. "You said you ran," she said, "and carried things with you. Why come back? Why now?" He wiped his hands on a rag. "Because I saw what fire does, and I was tired of watching good things burn. Thought maybe, if I rebuilt something I helped ruin, it might matter." "It does," she said too quickly. He blinked, unsure if he'd heard right. She looked away, voice thinner. "It matters to me." The words hung in the air like sparks. "I was 13, she said, voice slow, steady. "I was hiding under the altar when it collapsed. I still remember the sound of my sister's bones breaking. I remember my father's hand shoving me through the side door before the ceiling caved. And when I turned back," she swallowed hard, "when I turned back, you were standing there, not helping, not running, just watching it fall. I didn't know what to do," Cole whispered. "You should have done anything." "I know." His voice cracked. She stepped closer. "But you're still here." He looked up. "So are you." She kissed him. It wasn't gentle. It was raw, trembling, desperate, not out of love, not yet, but out of need, to feel something besides Ash, to press against the one man who hadn't turned his back. When she pulled away, her fingers lingered on his shirt, trembling. "We don't have time to waste," she said. He nodded, still stunned. "Where will they come from?" "Main Road. At night. They'll make a show of it. That's what men like them do." "I'll be ready." "No," she said. "You'll be hidden." His brow furrowed. "I won't run again." "You won't. You'll survive." She led him to the chapel cellar, a space once used for root storage, now little more than a pit with a trapdoor and cobwebs. She handed him a lantern. "They'll search the hills first. Then they'll come here. Let them. But when they strike the match, when they think they've won, then you come out." He stared at her. "You'll be inside?" "I was born in fire," she said. "Let them try." That night, the sheriff rode to the Pale Sun's camp outside town. He brought whiskey and a lie. That Cole was plotting violence, that Etta was lost him, that the town wanted justice but lacked the stomach. "Let the church burn," he told them. "The people will cheer when it's done." Back in town, Etta lit candles along the chapel's empty pews. She cleaned the pulpit, laid her sister's charred cross on the altar. She braided her hair like her mother once taught, tight, Apache style, then cut a thin line across her palm and smeared her blood on the doorway. A protection, a warning. The wind shifted. Horses neighed in the dark. She looked at the trapdoor one last time, then stood tall, breath steady. Let them come. Let them burn. Night broke like a blister. The Pale Suns rode in with lanterns swinging from their saddles and iron in their hands. Their boots hit the dirt in unison. 5 men moved toward the chapel, rifles low, faces hidden behind white cloth marked with stitched crosses, mocking salvation. The 6th man, slower and cleaner, stood back. The sheriff, Etta watched from the pulpit, still as stone, firelight casting flickers across her face. Her hands were folded in her lap, palms raw. Around her, the chapel stood in silence, new beams waiting to breathe, unfinished pews like ribs of a reborn body. The leader stepped through the door first, a heavy man with a long scar tracing his cheekbone. He looked up, surprised she wasn't running. "You don't belong here, miss," he said, voice like gravel. "We came for the arsonist." Her voice rang out without tremble. "The one you're hunting's beneath your feet." There was a murmur among the others. "You hid him?" the scarred man asked. "I saved him." "From you? Then you're twice damned." Etta stood. Her braid fell over her shoulder like a black rope. She stepped down from the pulpit, slow and even, walking straight toward the man with nothing but the truth in her mouth. "You think this town's yours to cleanse? That God speaks through your torches." She stopped inches from him. "Let me show you what he really sounds like." She raised her hand, revealing the letters she had clutched all day. Yellow, creased, written in her father's own hand. Blackmail, extortion. Since this guy is in holy ink. She threw them at the sheriff's boots. The room stilled. "I found these in my father's box," she said. "He wasn't shepherd. He was a wolf. And your sheriff here, he knew, protected him, buried the truth beneath his badge." The Pale Suns looked sideways now, uncertain. Even the scarred man squinted. "She's lying," the sheriff said, stepping forward. "She's been twisted by that murderer in the cellar." "He didn't start the fire," Etta snapped. "It was your friend, the traveling preacher. And you let him vanish. Let Cole take the blame. Because he was easier to hate than your own reflection." The scarred man stepped toward the sheriff, eyes narrowing. "You never told us about this." The sheriff fumbled for words. "The girl's confused. Her whole family." Etta struck first. She grabbed the lantern from the wall and smashed it at the sheriff's feet. Flame burst upward, catching the oil he didn't know she'd poured earlier. He staggered back, cloak of fire chasing up his leg. The room erupted. In the chaos, the trapdoor slammed open. Cole rose like vengeance itself, rifle in hand, smoke curling behind him. His eyes found Etta instantly. She was crouched low, eyes alert, not broken. He fired. One pale sun dropped. Then another. Screams tore through the chapel as fire climbed the beams. Bullets thudded into wood. A window shattered. Etta grabbed a pistol from beneath the altar, aimed, and shot the third man in the chest before he could lift his weapon. She didn't hesitate. Her hand shook after, but not before. The scarred man tackled Cole, knocking him into the altar. The rifle skittered away. They grappled, fists pounding knees and ribs, teeth bared. Etta aimed her pistol again, heart pounding, but the fire leapt between them, obscuring the shot. Cole twisted, slammed the man's head into the floor once, twice, until he stopped moving. Smoke thickened. "Etta!" he called, coughing. She ran to him. Together they stumbled toward the doors, but the flames had licked up the frame. One exit, no longer an option. Heat pressed against their backs like a hand of wrath. "This way," she rasped, pulling him toward the side. The same broken panel her father had once shoved her through. The same way she had escaped the fire before. They burst into the night, breathless, blackened. Behind them, the church blazed like a pyre. The bell, half hung and rusted, gave one last groan before crashing through the roof. Townsfolk emerged, drawn by the flames and gunfire. They watched the two of them stagger into the street, bloodied, burned, and still standing. No one cheered. No one spit. Just silence. The sheriff lay dead inside. 3 of the pale sons, too. The others had ridden off. Souls too cowardly to face fire they couldn't command. Cole stood with a cut over his brow, hand clasped in Etta's. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. One child of fire. One man who walked through it. The church collapsed behind them in a hiss of embers. In the morning, the wind shifted again, blowing the smoke westward. And the two of them, marked by ruin, tempered by truth, walked toward whatever came next. Not to run, not to rebuild, but to begin